Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Home and Away, a podcast devoted to all things in and around the world of sport in Kansas City soccer. I am Drew Vanderploeg, joined once again, as always, by my good friend Cody Welton. This week on the podcast, the offseason has well and truly begun for Sporting Kansas City as David Lee made his first official decisions as the new chief soccer officer of the club, moving on from at least 12 players from the 2025 roster, with one in negotiations to stay, leaving only 13 currently rostered players going into the 2026 season. This leaves a mountain of work to accomplish over the next 10 weeks as he and his staff look to reload this roster with players before preseason training begins in early January. And while it is a significant endeavor, it is of course something we all expected and something he certainly signed up for when taking on the job. Lee met with media not long after the decisions were made public and spent a good 25 minutes discussing the opportunities that this team has this offseason, his thoughts on the players remaining on the roster, as well as his thought process for identifying new players and the manager meant to coach them. There is a lot of work ahead, but Lee appeared to be a man not only aware of the task at hand, but also invigorated by the potential that it provided. We'll dig into all that information, adding our thoughts and context and what we hope to see and expect to see from this offseason, as well as checking in on the beginning of the MLS playoffs and the U.S. women's national team as they gear up for their match in Kansas City against New Zealand. Cody, we no longer have to make any predictions or provide any more personal opinions on which players should stay or which players should go. Those decisions have been made, and they largely aligned with what we have both been suggesting they likely would and should be once the season ended. So to do a quick recap, 6 players had their options declined. That was Tim Leibold, Nemanja Radia, Kyrie Shelton, Mason Toye, and Ryan Sheway. Sheway has since, as of today, re-signed a new contract with the club. We'll have more on that later. Additionally, there were 7 more players, contracts, or loans who expired and will not be returning, namely Joaquin Fernandez, Logan Ndenbe, Eric Tommy, Robert Volader, Memo Rodriguez, Andrew Brody, and Alan Montes. Santi Munoz's loan was also expired, but the club is looking into options for retaining his services. So I guess my first question for you is, did any of these decisions surprise you? And then additionally, what are your thoughts about the decisions that Lee made with this roster?
So I'll reverse it and say my thoughts is just it's a refreshing sound of a toilet flushing. Just purging.
God damn, dude! We don't need to be dancing on graves here. Like, come on, dude.
I am not dancing on graves, but I think that even the players who I think I could have maybe seen coming back, I think that. There just comes a time when it's just stale and old and it needs to be refreshed. And those players are as much a victim of, Peter Vermes' mismanagement as anybody else, right? And so, like, if we're going to, maybe I'm being a little bit harsh, but I think the blame for this really squarely has to fall on Peter Vermes. So if anybody's the villain, it's not me, it's that dude. I will say that... I had said last time that I would be okay with small surprises. Afrifa over Toye, that's a small surprise, and I'm okay with that. Like, I understand the consternation about Afrifa. I think that probably a lot of the reason I think age probably played a lot into it. I think
Mason Toye's 26. Like, calm down. Like, I think this is more money than it is anything else.
Okay, so I mean those two things are linked in my head, and so I think you're probably right. I don't mind Mason Toye, but I'm not sad that he won't be returning with the team.
Right.
I'm not crazy about Steven Afrifa, but I'm not sad that he's going to be on the team because you gotta at this point fill roster slots, and I think that
of the options that they picked up, they were all supplemental roster guys.
Right. Which means...
So that should tell you everything you should need to know about why they're still here.
They're cheap.
Because they're cheap, they don't hit the cap, and they provide some level of value with limited cap investment.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yep.
I think reasonable people can disagree about a Frifa versus Toy, what their effectiveness can be. They're completely different players. I saw some and again, this is like a reminder, don't ever read the comments because they're generally not very well thought out. But I saw someone say, well, they're both super speedsters that get in behind. I'm like, Stephen Afrifa is not that at all.
No, he's
like,
not.
have you been watching this
No.
player? Because I'm getting a little concerned that there might be a little bit of racismo going into your analysis here.
That sounds like a pace and power analysis right there.
Yeah. So Stephen Afrifa is not a fast player. He is not a player who gets in behind. Mason Toy definitely is a very vertical player that stretches back lines. I think that but also Afrifa is much more of a winger than he is a center forward. He is much more of a 1v1 dribbler than he is someone who stretches a back line and runs in behind.
Yep.
And I understand why certain people like that style of play of his. Daniel Sperry brought up a reasonable point where you kind of play out Toy's minutes versus Afrifa in 2024, and they look pretty similar as far as their production. Obviously, Afrifa didn't play very much this year, and there's a lot of reasons potentially as to why that was the case. But, realistically, he didn't play. Toy played, and if you compare Toy's production this year to Afrifa's last year under similar minute load, the production is similar. Yeah. So I think I can sort of recognize that if you expect Afrifa to retain that or to regain that production level. Additionally, like I said, I think the main thing is Toy was on what, $300,000+ guaranteed this year. An option year, you would assume, probably has a raise in it of significance.
Yeah.
Mike Burns has all of the context about what it took to sign him in the first place and what his expectations would be for salary next year, which means they know whether or not retaining him was a viable thing financially versus retaining Afrifa, who is only on the senior roster because they had to have 18.
Right.
Like his compensation was such that he could have been on the supplemental roster if they had enough players to move him down there. So I think that all those things played in. And again, like to your point, I think of what you were saying is this is a small surprise, very much on the fringes of the roster conversation. That is sort of not that big of a deal. No. If Stephen Afrifa plays 1,000 minutes next year, I'll be pretty surprised.
100%.
So, like, what difference does it make?
Either if that's the case, either he's doing something really right, or something's gone really
something
wrong.
Else has gone really wrong, and I hope it's the former, right?
Yeah.
And I feel fairly confident in the fact that it is probably not going to be the latter, based on how David Lee has talked about what he needs to do and the job he's got in front of him. So. I agree. That was probably the only somewhat eyebrow-raising one, other than the Ryan Sheway thing. So let's talk about goalkeeper just for a second, because Sheway has played 0 minutes for the first team. He's played a couple games. He's played, I forget how many starts he has for the second team this year, but it wasn't that significant. He, by all accounts that I've heard, is not that good.
Yeah.
So, or at least he isn't sort of viewed as being very good. So I'm a little confused by this one, especially when they declined his option to renegotiate. And so he signs this new deal. It gets announced today. It's for 2026 with an option for 27 and 28. He was already on the supplemental roster in like slots 25 to 28. So like for people, I don't want to get too far in the weeds on this, but there's two parts of the supplemental roster. The first 4 slots are for guys making the senior minimum, which this year was like $104,000. The next 4 slots are for people under the age of 24 making the reserve minimum, which was like $80,000. So like, did his option year push him up from 25 to 28 into 21 to 24, and they declined it to try to push him back down there? Like, I mean,
that would be my guess.
Man, we're talking about getting into the, like, we really don't want you unless you are on the bottom of the roster.
Which, if that's the context, great. Like, I mean,
I mean, if the option put him on the
is,
senior roster for sure, you don't take it on. But like the fact that, and David Lee even said it in the presser, he was like, if Ryan decides he wants to stay, which was very much, you're going to take this comp if you want to be here.
That's exactly
that's how I read that statement.
Yeah.
So, and it appears that he was. So, like, I mean, being on an MLS roster, I'm sure, is better for Shea Way than trying to go to USL or something like that. Like
100%.
he's gonna make more money. He's gonna get better coaching, all that kind of stuff. So, like, I think for him, obviously, it's a no brainer. But still, it shows that they're maximizing every detail of this in ways that we just have not seen before.
It's glorious. I love it.
It's great, right? Like, yeah. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, would it have been that big a deal if Shea Way moved into slots 21 to 24?
No.
Probably not. But the fact that they're like, no, you can only stay if you keep your comp low enough that we can keep you down in these lower slots. I mean, it's noteworthy.
Well, and the nice thing is that it's kind of a goalkeeper in hand is worth two in the bush kind of thing, right? Like with Shea Way, even if the data is bad, we know what he is, we know what we have, and at this point, there's 4 goalkeepers on the roster, and you don't need. You can actually.
Well, there's three. There's three, but Lee wants to add a 4th.
Right. So you've just made your job easier, right? Instead of adding 2 goalkeepers, you only have to add 1, and it was easy and not a lot of money, not a lot of headache. And I think that the whole thing is there are bigger fish to fry here, right? There are much more important things that have to be done. So you do what you can to sort of put the goalkeeper issue on the back burner a little bit. And if a good opportunity presents itself, great. If not, then you at least have you're not going into the season with the cupboard bare, which is good because you've got a bare cupboard every other where on the field, and you have to devote a lot of manpower and hours into recruiting and trying to sign players at other positions. So at least, especially
the positions directly in front of the goalkeeper.
Right,
like Mike Kuhn alluded to today, there are currently more goalkeepers that are signed for this team than there are defenders. So
that's the stat of the day for sure. I love that.
Yeah. And the 2 defenders that are signed, one of them we drafted last year. The other one is 17 years old. Right. So there are for sure much more pressing areas of need. And I think when Lee made it clear that he wants to retain 4 goalkeepers on the roster, you start to understand why Shea Way is around. It's an interesting strategy. He didn't really clarify why he wants to have 4 goalkeepers, but he said he wants 4. And so as a result, they bring Shea Way back, and then he made some commentary about. I think Pulskamp is probably going to be the preeminent starter next year. Let me put it this way: the way that Lee discussed the position at the end of that press conference, and the way that he highlighted, he made positive comments about Pulskamp, and I noted this in the Discord at the time. There was some semi-positive comments about Shoppy. There were he made some positive comments about pretty much every player that stayed. I think that's more chief soccer officer talk in a press conference. He's not gonna say, man, we were stuck keeping this guy around, man, I wish I could have got rid of him too. Like that's not gonna happen, right?
Well, just you want to be able to sell players if necessary too, right? Like, so
right.
why would you decrease the value by running players down in the media? You pump them up, and maybe you make
it sound like you like them.
Absolutely.
Even if your opinion might be a little bit more mixed behind closed doors. With Pulskamp, he made it a point to discuss how, quote unquote, how good of a season he thought John had, even with the number of goals they gave up. I think we all can read through those comments a little bit, but I also think they're instructive in the manner that he said he's like, he would not commit to like trying to bring in a player that might compete with him for minutes. Like, it does not sound like goalkeeper is high on his list of areas to focus on.
No, nor should it be.
Exactly. It shouldn't be. And I think that's the thing. It's like when you hear him, sometimes for fans, there's that dissonance with, like, did Pulskamp have a great year? No, I don't think he did. But I don't think he was poor either.
Right.
And I think that there are glaring areas of need that are a higher priority than goalkeeper at the moment.
Yeah.
And they can bring in. It seemed like he was interested in bringing in an older, more veteran goalkeeper to sort of add some experience to the goalkeeping room, which I think makes sense. It was something we sort of expected to happen last offseason and never did. So, how high profile that player is, I wouldn't expect a ton.
Yeah.
But it will certainly be someone, should Pulskamp should Pulskamp have issues next year, that they would feel comfortable playing if needed, right?
Well, and I think it's also worth noting, and I think we've mentioned this in the past too, is that for all intents and purposes, like player development, the development of the young players completely stalled out in the second half of the season, right? So no player sort of continued on a positive trajectory. We saw, Jansen Miller's minutes went down, his play suffered. We saw Jacob Bartlett's minutes go down, his play definitely suffered. And you can say the same about Pulskamp. Pulskamp's play definitely suffered the last 6 weeks of the season, and I think that you can't just ignore that, right? The context around that stall in development, and you have to at some point put a little bit of trust into Lee and his decision making, that he's not only going to hire a competent coach, but he's going to hire a staff that can focus on development. I mean, he's shown in the past that he as someone who worked for a City Football Group, that was one of the things that he had to do, was develop players to sell on, and he showed that he was able to make those decisions. And so I think that if that person is saying that we should hold on to Pulskamp and give him another shot, then I'm okay with it. And like we said, there's just so many more important things to worry about. I mean, I would say, like, you need a backup striker and a backup number 10 for Manu before you even think about signing another goalkeeper. That's how deep the problems with the roster are right now. And I think that I'm excited to see obviously who the next head coach is, but I'm very hopeful about the sort of developmental build out that might accompany that.
Yeah, I think there was also a conversation on the Discord about this, and I've got it here in the rundown, just talking about like what younger players we might see potentially make a jump next year. And I think the context brought around it on the Discord was around some stability of having a legitimate head coach in place, knowing that stability is having a staff in place,
having a game model.
Well, it's just so much of the season was in upheaval.
Yeah,
the whole year, right? And so the roster was in a shit state, but also the staff was in a shit state. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, how do you, as a young player, how is that a positive environment for you to develop in? Right, and grow in. And so I think that there is something to be said for the fact that Pulskamp, even at 24, is very young for a goalkeeper, mm-hmm. has some opportunity to get into a more stable environment with a new goalkeeping coach. It sounds like Alec Duffy, it was announced, is moving on to move on to the front office over in Nashville SC's second team org. So like there's going to be changes, and there's going to be changes on the coaching staff, and there's going to be new people in the building, but it's also going to be obviously a much more professional environment than it was this past year. And, mm-hmm. and I don't say that in a way to sort of shit on the people that were around to do it. I just don't think that there were enough people around for it to be the type of professional development environment that it needed to be. And I think that those changes will definitely help. I think of those young players, like if you think of Jansen Miller as a first-year player, James, Bartlett, I guess you can throw Pulskamp in there, but I'm not even really considering Pulskamp. More of the field players. James probably has the highest ceiling mm-hmm. of those. But I expect Jansen Miller to have a pretty big jump next year. Like, I think there's a player there.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
And I think that being in a stable back line where he is able to, settle down some of his tendencies a little bit, but also learn to pick his moments to where he can use his range and his sort of active nature of defending
Mm-hmm.
effectively. I think like there's opportunity there for him to really make a big step up. So if there was one that I expected the most out of, I feel bad saying this, but I don't know if Bartlett is. I don't know if he is ever going to be that great. Like he might be.
I
He,
don't think as a midfielder.
yeah,
I
that
think
I'm
that
kind of the same way.
I think his long term projection, probably is best as a center back.
Like a ball playing center back,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. We'll see. I don't want to box him in because, like I said, so much was
Right.
bad this year that it's hard to really qualify it. But Miller is probably the one of those three that I think probably has the most opportunity to make a big jump next year. I just don't think Ian James is going to play enough
Hmm.
for
Well,
us to see
I
a
think
significant jump from
I
him.
think for any of these players, maybe aside from Camp, I think that moving forward, I feel like if they're starting or getting a lot of minutes, it is probably going to be meritocracy based instead of that they're like the only the only kid on the roster, right? And so that alone, I think, makes me a little bit more optimistic for them. But I think that we should really prepare ourselves for the fact that it's possible that none of these guys are starting quality players next year or maybe a few years beyond that, because that's just I think how bad this roster had become, where there were a lot of players starting who would almost certainly not start for MLS playoff quality teams, and so it provides those younger players a an incentive to up their game and improve, but I think also. I think fans should feel heartened that they're certainly going to bring in. They're not I guess the point I'm trying to make is they're not out there. I would be very surprised if they were out there looking for backups for Jansen Miller. They're out there looking for starting quality center backs who are coming in to start over him. And if he rises above and competes for his job, then so be it. But we're not going into the season thinking that that's our starting right center back.
No, no, definitely. I mean, he's going to have an opportunity to try to win that job,
Right.
but I don't think that anyone's planning like he's not already been written in as the starting right center back. Also, when it comes to Bartlett, and maybe I need to be fair to him, he played almost 2,000 minutes this
Mm-hmm.
season,
That's
and
a
like you
lot
said,
for a young kid.
mostly it's out of necessity. I mean, James Sands had 1,400 minutes his age 19 season
Yeah.
with NYCFC.
Yeah.
It wasn't until his age 20 year that he went over 2,000 minutes. And even then, it was like, well, nah, that's 2021. That season was weird. So he might have played more minutes if it was a regular 34-game season. I mean, did they play 34 games in 2021? I guess they did, but the schedule was weird. But and then Sands went. Remember, he went to Rangers and couldn't
Mm-hmm.
get on the field,
Yep.
and had to come back to NYCFC
Yep.
and play a couple more years before now he's at St. Pauli and playing in the Bundesliga, doing okay. I wouldn't say that it's fantastic, but I mean, I think Sands is probably a fairly reasonable
Comparison.
comparison. Yeah, like kind of an allegory to what Bartlett might be if he reaches max potential.
I think Bartlett is a better passer and probably not as much of a physical ball winning presence as Sands. Um, but that's just my initial impression without even thinking about it very hard.
Yeah, I would probably say that's true, but I would also say that Bartlett hasn't been able to. I don't think Bartlett has been put in positions at the six for this team to be a ball winner of significance. Like I
Sure.
think that midfield is such a fucking mess defensively that like You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Oh, I know what you mean. Believe me, I know. That is priority number one for me is
Having a 19-year-old in his first season meant to try to like wipe out that much space on his own. I don't know what's realistic to
unless it's
expect.
Tyler Adams, 19-year-old Tyler Adams. The answer is no.
No,
It's not a good idea.
right. So
And the only reason it was a good idea for Tyler Adams is just because the dude covered that much ground. It's not like, I mean, yeah, he was good, but I mean, he just ate up ground. Like, he just covered ground. That's kind of what he did, and won balls.
when he was 18, yeah,
Right.
that's what he did. Yeah,
Right.
He's become a much better actual soccer player since then. But when he was 18, that was just he covered everything. That was kind of
Did you know
his value.
he plays for the third best team in the Premier League?
Yes, I know, because I know who the fourth best team in the Premier League is, and it's not Liverpool.
No, it's
by the way.
not. No, it's not.
The last thing was sort of the conversation around Santi Munoz's potential to stay with the team. Now, this one's a little bit more complicated than Shea Way. The way that David Lee sort of talked around it in the press conference is that they were not going to pay his purchase option, and it's like, Santi, you want to stay? We'd like you to stay. We like you, but not for this much money.
Right.
So it sounds like both his agent and it sounds like him and his agent are going to have to work it out with Santos to figure out a way to get that deal down.
Right.
It's good that Santi likes being here. I can tell, like, he and Manu are pretty good buds. Like, and he enjoys living here. He enjoys being with his club. He has a good relationship with Manu. I think that all of those things lead to positives, but it also sounds like, David Lee and Mike Burns are like, okay, we're willing to keep you for this amount of salary cap charge.
Yep.
So either your contract goes down or the fee goes down, but this is how much cap charge we're willing to take on. And they're trying to work that part out. I don't know what Santos is going to want something, but also, like, do they want him coming back and just sitting on their roster for nothing?
Unlikely.
Like, at a certain point, you're just like, okay, we'll just move on. So
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see if they work that out. It sounds like I don't know what leverage Santos has in this circumstance, other than just making him sit on their bench and paying him.
Right. Yeah, I have no idea. I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about Munoz, and so.
But if he's on the team for 300 and something thousand a year and is off the bench guy that can play as a real 10, like as a central 10 or as a second striker,
as long as it's not at a wing position, I think okay.
Yeah. Well, I think a good coach is going to recognize that he can.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Function there.
I think you're right. The nice thing is that from Lee's perspective, like, in some respects, the most difficult players to sign are already on the team, right? Like the goal scoring number 9 already on the team. The playmaking number 10 already on the team. Young promising goalkeeper already on the team. And so I think that, like, I don't know, that sort of gives me some hope that maybe things go a little bit more smoothly than they could, because everything else is like, obviously
the available options at the positions he needs to fill are significantly easier to get.
Yes.
Like, there's a larger group of them, and you're much more likely to be able to find them for the amount of money you want to spend in those places.
And that's I think why they jumped on Joveljic when they did. Obviously.
So let's talk about Sir Joveljic, right?
Let's do it.
Okay. So Joveljic, they jumped on him for a $4 million transfer fee. Let's call it that, a cash for player trade. And Paul Harvey put out an article on his blog. Paul Harvey, if you don't know, mostly covers NYCFC, but also contributes to ASA, has some awesome, like, if you really want to nerd out on stats and underlying numbers, he's taken a bunch of the information from the ASA database and turned it into, like, data viz on Tableau, And so if you look at his Blue Sky, I think it's a pinned post on his Blue Sky that has the links to his Tableau dashboard. You can get really far into the weeds about the underlying numbers, specifically from ASA's database, but they're still useful like statistics to be able to look at. And the data viz that he's built out for it is actually pretty cool. He put up an article, like kind of his take on quote unquote how to fix Sporting Kansas City. And I will say that I probably agree with 95% of the things he said. And a lot of them are things that you and I have highlighted on this podcast several times, areas of need and kind of the limitations of how they've gone about building the roster and what that's created and why they're in the situation they're in now and the areas that are, important to need. But I took a little bit of an issue with part of what he said because I think it lacks context. And I think this is an important conversation to have because data is extremely important to how teams evaluate players, look at their performance, like get real understandings of what a player is and isn't and their value. And but the problem is if you only look at the data, it can give you a perception of a situation that may not have the full picture. And I think that's, in my opinion, what kind of happened with Paul's article here, because he sort of quantified like the very second point that he brought up in the article, and he called it a glaring need, was to fix the striker position. And he didn't frame it as this player is good, we need to stop asking him to do things he's bad at. He framed it as this is a problem area that needs to potentially be replaced, but can't be because he's a DP. And started to highlight potential like USL championship players or something they could bring in as a backup that might potentially usurp him at some point. I had a good back and forth with Cameron on the Discord about this. Cameron is a big part of the ASA Discord, likes the ASA information, and I think he knows a lot of those guys as well. I think he has access to some of the more of the ASA data than like is publicly available. And so I know that he is a proponent of that sort of thought process. And I think that's perfectly fine. Like I don't have any issue with that. But he also said, well, it's like, oh, well, I thought it was a pretty balanced take. And I'm like, I don't know, balance is the way I'd put it when you say it's a glaring need to fix. And he and I had a really good back and forth, and we discussed like the fact that Sporting Kansas City strikers over the last 4 years have looked pretty poor on G+. Mm-hmm. They have been the worst striker in the league every year. It was Polito for a couple years, and now it's Joveljic. And Jovelich's G+ has never been fantastic, but it's always been above average. I think maybe 1 year at the Galaxy it wasn't above average, but for the most part it's been above average. And this year it was the worst in the league for a striker. And he gets dinged pretty poorly for things for dribbling and I think receiving. And mainly that's because he was doing the same things that Polito was doing, which was dropping back to receive the ball near the circle and then being tasked with ball progression responsibilities that are just not his forte. And that's okay. There are not a whole lot of strikers in the world that are really good at that.
Right.
Right. I think Cameron said it's like if we had Cucho, this would be great. And I'm like, yeah, but how many Cuchos are there? Like, I think of like Harry Kane as being an example of someone who's fantastic at this. But Erling Haaland is terrible at it.
Yep.
And that was a big thing last year where they like highlighted the fact that Haaland was not useful in the middle of the field. How's that working out now? Right? Like Haaland's still pretty fucking good, still pretty fucking useful. They've just changed his responsibility a little bit and they've brought in other players that can take that load away. Mm-hmm. And I think this is more about a conversation of how limited Sporting Kansas City is in chance creation and in ball progression. Without and Manu was injured for a lot of the season, for a lot of the second half of the season, which I think has led to some of this issue as well. They just don't have ball progressors on this team. So Jovelic is getting touches in really poor areas for him to be additive to the attack, which again also pulls him away from the areas where he is extremely effective.
Right.
And so I looked at it more as a roster problem. than it was a player problem. And so, yeah, I took issue with Paul sort of framing it as a player problem. And he even said on the Foodie Discord later that he thought it was a bad signing by Sporting. And I just firmly disagree with that mindset. So I think, again, this is important because the data is useful, because it does give us an understanding of the player and what they're good at and how to augment those elite skills with players around him that can help maximize it.
Right.
And I think that is this is me going on a bit of a diatribe about this, but I think it's important because it is a really important way for roster building. Mm-hmm. Like, as you look at building a roster as a whole, whether you think Joveljic is a good striker in MLS or not, I really don't care. He's here. He's scored 18 goals this year. He's not going anywhere.
On a crap-tastic
absolute
team.
Fucking shit team with no service.
Yeah.
And scored 18 goals this year.
Yeah.
Manu Garcia is here. He has limitations from the traditional 10 as you'd think about it. So now you have those two players. They are DPs. You want to bring them back next year. They're going to bring those guys back. Yeah. So what do you do with that information that you have about these players to augment them and turn this offense into a humming machine? And that's where I think that data comes in, and that's where I think it's fascinating to look at how David Lee's going to go about doing this.
Well, one thing you do is you sign wingers that are chance-creating monsters. That's what you do, because I think that when under Peter Vermes, Sporting in the most recent iteration of Sporting that was what you would consider like a high-powered offense had goal scoring wingers, right? Which is fine, right? When you had Johnny and Shallowy both in double digit goals, great. But the thing is
I think a lot of people misunderstood how much of an attacking force Johnny Russell was at his best, like a chance creating winger. Like he was when a lot of us the Austin Gordons of the world kind of talk about having a traditional 10. Mm-hmm. Johnny Russell was that. That's what he was. Like, he was the guy dribbling the ball into the box and creating chances, and was an elite chance creator for this team for several years. And the gap, well, and I mean, going from him to Shoppy is just we're on two different fucking planets, right? Yeah. Between those two players. So I think it sort of highlighted it even more than you would think. But I think we didn't realize how much of an offensive load Johnny Russell was taking until he was gone.
But I mean, you when you think back, like that the great season that those two had together, Russell and Shallowy, when they were both double digit goal scorers. That was with Kyrie Shelton as their center forward, and if you can bring in comparable wingers, you don't even have to have necessarily wingers who can score a lot of goals. You just have to have people to get the ball to Joveljic, because we know that Joveljic's poor G+ numbers, they don't come from his touches in the box, right?
No, when he has, in fact, he rates really well on that stuff.
When he touches the ball in the box, he's golden. That's what you got. It's in some ways, it's really that simple. You just find people who can get the guy touches in the box. You're not going to sign a traditional number 10 because you don't need one. You have Manu, and so you focus your attention on chance creating wingers, and that's like building a roster is not easy, but like some decisions like those are kind of easy, right? They're kind of straightforward. Like that is what the team needs to do first and foremost, and then see what other parts they can build around. They definitely the goal has to be to build around the players that you have first and foremost, right? Because you have two designated players, and the goal has to be to find a system and a supporting cast that makes the most out of those two players.
Well, and it sounds like those are going to be the only designated players. Like Lee brought that up in the press conference. I think Sperry asked him about it, which roster building mechanism he preferred, And he, a little bit non-committal, but also sort of said, like, I think we're going to go with the 2-4-2 in the next season, mainly because, and I thought this was an interesting sort of point that he made, we need a lot of help in the middle of the roster.
Yep.
And I need that extra $2 million to make the team better in the middle of the roster, which I thought was, first of all, such a really refreshing, just sort of just transparent take that makes a whole lot of fucking sense. And it's like, why are... I'm not going to get into it. It's just nice to have someone who just says what he thinks and has a well thought out reason for why he thinks that, and is not really concerned with what if other people have this information or what. It's just it's just like, I'm just going to say what I think. I'm gonna put it out there, and this is what we're going to do. But yeah, I actually appreciated him being that straightforward about it. He's like, we'll probably leave ourselves enough flexibility that if a DP becomes available in the summer, we can go after it. But it did not sound like they had any interest in signing a DP in the offseason.
No, they shouldn't, right? Like that, going with a third DP is like the last thing, right? In the squad building thing, like it's the cherry on top. Yeah, when you've taken care of everything else and you're just missing that one final piece, maybe then that's what you do. But you don't do it when like you don't even have a functional back line.
Yeah, there's just so many other areas of much larger importance, and the middle of an MLS roster is really how you get competitive. Like, it really is.
Yeah.
Like, the elite players are how you win playoff games. Like, if you want to be a competitive team for 34 games, the middle of your roster and the quality of your depth is the most important part of it.
Yep.
And I think it makes sense that he would be focused in that area. But I think that also means that, the third DP is going to be the last thing they do if they do it. And it doesn't even sound like Lee is that interested in going that way unless their scouting just sort of brings them this great DP that they want, that they're like, this guy wants to come and this is a great fit and we just can't say no. But otherwise, they, like you said, they have just bigger fish to fry. There are more important areas on the field that they need to address. And
as long as they don't waste a DP slot on a mid 30-year-old ex Bundesliga.
I don't think you have to worry about that, man. I really don't think that needs to be a concern with this guy.
I just for those of you who are waiting for the slam on St. Louis, you can take your drink now.
There it is. Well, he's now for Aberdeen FC. I mean, hope you like some 2. Bundesliga players.
Oh no, I was talking about Roman Berkey specifically though.
Well, yeah. Oh my God. I mean,
you don't want to spend your DP on that.
He's a DP in name only. Like, they're doing that because they're really only going to have one real DP on their roster, and it makes no sense for them not to call him a DP and take their $2 million in GAM, right? Like, I get that, but it's absurd. I'm sorry. I think any MLS team paying over $1 million in salary to a goalkeeper is doing it wrong.
Yep, I agree.
And this goes for Orlando as well. As much as I love Galese, you can see how much he's fallen off this year, and they are hamstrung by it. And they're also hamstrung by Oscar Pereja, but that's a whole separate conversation. But I think he's going to end up leaving. If I'm Ricardo Barrera, I just let him walk.
Absolutely. Go make a bunch of money in South America or something.
No shit, and good for him. Like, go do it, man. Like, I'm happy for you if you get that money. Go get that bag, but it doesn't make sense in a salary cap league to be spending that amount of your... If, like, next year, the salary budget is roughly $13 million. So you're going to spend a 13th of your salary budget on a goalkeeper?
Mm-hmm. They better be out of this world.
Right, yeah. Like, Carlos Cornell is probably the only goalkeeper, or Dane Sinclair. Those are probably the two in the league that I could see commanding that. And I think Sinclair's trying to get that money from Minnesota, and they're not really wanting to give it to him. But also, we saw what Dane Sinclair did last night in that penalty shootout against Seattle. So it's like, I mean,
he's stating his case, isn't he?
Bro, that guy is the most just beautiful vibes on earth in a
yes.
penalty kick shootout. Like, he's kissing the post after Roldan hit it. Like, the guy just, and he's just walking, just talking shit to the players as they put I mean, obviously I am not Canadian, but I was vibing with how Dane St. Clair was going about that shootout. Like, it was, like, he's going to be fun at the World Cup.
Yes,
he's going to be a lot of fun.
He's a fun
if Canada ends up in a shootout with a team, like, it's going to be fun to watch for sure. But I think that, you know, there's just rare circumstances where it makes any sense. Like, I think Sean Johnson's going to end up leaving Toronto because it just, as much of his decent season as he had, it just does not make sense to invest that much of your salary budget into a goalkeeper.
Right.
And this is the conversation we were talking about. Like, Pulscamp's on like $400,000. If he's serviceable, I kind of get why David Lee's like, yeah, I'm not really worried about this. I'm going to go fix all these other fucking problems I have.
Yep.
And that's what he's going to do. So anyway, I think that there are so many areas of need, and you can sort of use data as a means to identify the profile of player that you need in those positions to help augment the ones you have. And that's the feeling I get from David Lee about how he goes about it. He did discuss analytics and, you know, building out an analytics department and whatnot. And people like really asked a lot of questions about that scouting analytics. There's just not much there. Like, how actively are you trying to build those out? And he was straight up. He's like, man, I got till January 10th to build this roster. This is not my priority right now. It can't be. And I think that that's fair. Like, that, realistically, he's like, it's going to take 14 months to build an analytics department. It's going to take even longer than that before they're giving me effective information that I can make decisions off of. And I appreciate, like, that's transparency. That's just like, and we know this, right? We know this is the case, but he's just saying it publicly. And so, like, people just understand what he means when he says it. And then he's like, in the meantime, and I think I said this last week on the pod or the week before, I was like, he's probably just going to contract out data for a while.
Yep.
And that's exactly what they said in the press conference. We've got contractors working with us on the data analysis side, so I can get the information that I need to be able to make good decisions while we work on the long-term plan, which is to build all this out for ourselves. And that's
there's
how
a long-term plan. That's so exciting.
It's fucking weird, isn't it? But also an understanding of a short-term need and figuring out a way to address the short-term need.
Yeah.
So that you make, to his exact quote, evidence-based decisions.
Yeah. Love it.
No more vibes. Like, let's just stop making decisions based on vibes.
Love it.
I think Sam McDowell said it in the article that he wrote. Is like, he was being nice. He was being nice to the club because it's not as if they don't have data and they don't look at data,
sure,
right? But he's like, David Lee's taking it from the back of the room and put it in the front,
right?
And I think that is the main difference here. And I think that we can all agree, if this team is going to be successful, and they have been surpassed by so many other teams that have evolved their approach to how they identify players, how they analyze players, how they, like, you know, how they go about their business of building their roster and figuring out what players are effective and not, and creating success on the field. Sporting has been surpassed in many ways. And by kind of sort of standing pat and just doing the same thing that they did that made them successful, what is it?
10 years ago?
7 years ago. Yeah, 7 years ago was the last time that they had a really legitimately successful season. And so he is going to evolve. He is going to shift that fairly significantly and fairly quickly, and he has to. Otherwise, they're going to continue to keep chasing.
Yep.
And I think we're starting to see that already. I also thought it was noteworthy. He name-checked how many international roster spots they had. And it's like, look, you know, we have 4 open right now. If Munoz comes back, they really only have 3. It sounded like he thinks that some green cards might be coming. Like, the way that he phrased it, he's like, we'll potentially get some green cards, which means some folks are in the process to get it done. To sort of remove that. But there are way too many spots on this team that need to be filled to be doing it all in the international market. And I think he said it in the press conference. He said, it's like, look, We are going to use every mechanism available to us to try to acquire players. It's going to be the super draft. It's going to be waivers. It's going to be free agency. It's going to be the international market. We're looking at all of them.
Hey, real quick, I just did a quick search Santi Munoz does not take up an international spot.
You are correct. Thank you for correcting me about this. He was born in El Paso. That is correct. I was thinking about him being in the Mexican League, and he qualifies as a Mexican domestic as well because his family is Mexican.
Right.
But you are correct. He was born in El Paso. Good point. Thank you. So, no, he does not take up a spot. So that is helpful, which probably also has something to do with why Lee is interested in re-signing him.
Yeah, I'm sure that has something to do with it.
So, at any rate, like, there's still only 4 international spots. Maybe there's 6. They have 13 players on the roster, maybe 14. They can carry 31. You can't fill them all with internationals unless you're Inter Miami. So you need to you need to be thoughtful about it and use, there's going to be a lot of domestic players coming in, and I think that that's good. And that's also a mechanism that this club has not been very effective at utilizing in the past. But I have high hopes for their ability.
They're going to have to get effective at it real quick.
Yeah. But it's also something that Lee has been effective at, doing intra-league transactions.
Absolutely.
This is what normal teams in this league do.
Yeah, so many things in the next 6 months are going to be like, what? Is that legal?
6
We
months.
can do that?
It's 10 weeks, man.
Yeah, I know.
It is 10 weeks from Friday.
I was counting the summer window too, but yes.
No. I get what you mean, but I'm just saying it's 10 weeks from Friday.
It's crazy.
He checked it a couple times in the press conference. He's like, January 10th is a big red circle on my calendar. Like, we need to have a team to be able to field by that point.
That's wild.
Currently, they have 13 players.
Yeah.
Which, again, I think we all agree that this was something that had to happen. Like, it had to happen. And you bring in a guy like this because you're confident in his ability in 10 weeks to address it. Now, do I think they're going to have 30 rostered players on January 10th? I absolutely do not. And he even said that. He's like, look, there are going to be some players that we're going to go past the 10th to negotiate on. It's going to be natural. Like, some of these things, we're going to have to kind of go with the flow in those circumstances. Also, the European transfer window doesn't close till the end of January. Like,
right.
we know about, like, some of these additions may happen later. But he's got to be able to at least bring a team to camp.
Yeah.
So I think that, the work starts in earnest immediately, which is also interesting because MLS offseason doesn't start until December 6th, I think.
Yeah,
I think it's the first date of the offseason. And then, there's the waiver draft and all that other stuff. So, like, a lot of these mechanisms, waivers and free agency and whatnot for domestic players, he's not going to be able to even touch for 6 of those 10 weeks.
Right.
It's kind of wild, right? But, it's how the league works. So I'm sure they're doing a lot of analysis in the meantime, like going, hey, who are these ones that we really want? What is our ranking list?
Yeah, getting their big board all set.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Things that you imagine a just normally functioning soccer team does.
Uh-huh. How exciting.
The good news is they got a lot of money to spend.
Yeah.
So I did the math based on the players that they re-signed, and obviously with Shea Way re-signing, he's going to be on the supplemental roster, so it doesn't matter. So the players they let go, the players they have on the roster, before we even talk about the extra $2 million in GAM they get for going for the 2-4-2 model, they have around $8 million in roster spending available to them. Now, Lee specifically said he plans to get 3 U22s in.
Yeah.
So that does knock $600,000 out of that. If they're, depending on their age, I'm not going to get into all of it. Let's call it $600,000. So they'd have $7.4 million left to spend in salary budget on the rest of the roster. And if they stick with 2-4-2, that's actually $9.4 million. So they could have 3 U22s, 2 DPs, and then still spend another $9.5 million on the rest of the roster.
That's great. Now all he needs the players to spend it on.
100%. Yeah.
Let's go.
I mean, I like that. Like I said, the evidence-based decision making, all of that stuff. He talked about the coaching, having to hire Pascal Janssen in New York City.
Yeah.
And who is still beating Charlotte right now as we're recording this. Like he just went through that process and was really happy with the coach he hired, and still said he's like, I've still made a bunch of notes of things I do differently.
Yeah.
Like it's just the kind of guy that's just constantly iterating on his process, refining it, making it better over and over again, and it's just so refreshing. It's just like... I don't even know how to describe how nice it is just to have someone who thinks in an analytical way.
Yeah. He's professional and competent.
And that's not to say that Peter Vermees was not professional or competent.
Yeah.
His ways did not, they were too stuck, which is weird. Like I said, we've discussed this before. He was so forward thinking in the 2010s.
Yeah.
And then something just stopped, and I don't know what it was. I think Pep's struggling with the same problem right now at City, to be completely honest.
Yeah, it's been difficult for Pep to move up beyond, Pep ball for sure. I think that especially at this point, if you think that, most of his past successes were, just iterations of, that sort of, ball control, maximum possession type style, and he's trying to do something pretty different now, and it's the results are kind of mixed, and so it's really difficult to marry possession with more direct attacking, like almost impossible. It's just those two things don't oftentimes work together, and so it makes it a really interesting problem for him to try and solve. And lucky him, he's got the best players in the world to try and solve it. So you know.
It's actually fascinating to watch him try to solve it, because I have no doubt in his genius in being able to work out a plan. So I'm kind of fascinated to watch him. So I mean, they're obviously better at the beginning of the season than they were at the end of last year.
Yeah.
And so it's more about I think the Premier League table is going to settle out over here over the next couple months. I'm not sure that I don't think Sunderland's going to be a top 4 team. Okay,
how dare you, Drew? How dare you?
Let's be honest with each other. I don't think Tottenham's going to be a top 4 team.
Those Sunderland fans have suffered enough, man. They deserve a little love.
Yeah. But it'll be interesting to see how he continues to evolve a little bit, and this is probably one of the bigger problems he's had to solve since being at City. So the game has changed significantly, and
it really has.
I think that just watching him sort of try to solve it in real time is kind of interesting to me. And Arne Slot's having the same problem at Liverpool, right? There's just a lot of guys are I think what's fascinating to me is how quickly the game is shifting year to year.
Yeah.
And I think that is.
Well,
I think data is a big part of it, right?
Yeah.
I think data is a big part of it. Obviously, the player arms race is a part of it, but I think we're getting so much better at, especially the big teams with the money to do it, with their own data departments, are able to analyze and adjust so quickly now that you're constantly faced with a new problem to solve.
Yep.
It used to take 2-3 years for significant tactical trends to change, and I think they're happening much faster than that now, which is a fascinating thing to watch in real time.
Yeah, and it that part of it's fascinating. It's fascinating to watch, the tactical arms race in the Premier League versus, other leagues as well. And so I think it remains to be seen whether what's happening in the Premier League has a substantial effects outside of the Premier League. It's not like Premier League teams are waltzing to the Champions League final every year, and that always makes me That it just underlines what a complicated sport we follow and how fascinating it is. I love it.
It really is.
I
Like, and
love the Premier League. I watch it every single weekend, and it's like my league of choice. But it also tickles me that those teams, can like get waxed by Inter
because they're
Milan.
so concentrated on beating each other.
Right.
Like, I really do think that this is a part of the problem the Premier League has. The top level of the Premier League is so competitive, right? It is so competitive, and they're so focused on beating each other that when they go to Champions League, they're faced with significantly different problems.
Yeah.
And I don't know that they're necessarily prepared to solve those.
Well, and in a respect, all those Premier League teams, like they all, to some degree, kind of play like the same way. They all play just like super fast, super intense,
Right.
pedal to the metal. And when you run into a team that doesn't play like that, it's like, whoa, like what? That's not something you face, within the league very often. And so I think it throws a real curveball at them. And I don't know, I love watching it, man. It's and I love thinking about the way that the game evolves in those respects. So
Well, and it's also why no significant tactical trend ever sticks around for very long, right? Because there's always risks, there's always holes, there's always areas to exploit, and so as those trends shift, more people try to find the weakness to it, or the way to attack it, or the way to defend it, and then that causes those teams to start to try to adjust. And so, like I said, I think what data has done is caused teams to adjust faster, right? Like, I think they're adjusting faster than they did before, but I don't know that the adjustments are that much more interesting than they were before, other than the fact that the athletes have gotten better.
Yeah.
And so the play is much faster, right? And
well,
so
I think the adjustments are more tweaks instead of wholesale changes to the way things are done.
Right.
Sometimes.
So this has been a big shift for Sporting Kansas City. A lot of players left. I was left at the end of this thinking, honestly, because they put out the videos of the different players and whatnot. And I said this earlier. It's like, I'm not using this opportunity as to dance on anybody's grave. Yep. All of these soccer players that were released from the team are better at soccer than anyone listening to this has ever been at anything. I want to be really clear about this. Like, these guys are elite at this job. That said, they were not good enough playing for this team, and it was time to make some of these changes. But that doesn't mean that we can't also, like, remember the good times, so to speak, right? And so it was nice, like, especially, I know the team put a lot of effort into the Eric Tommy goodbye video. This is a guy who's been a great leader for this team ever since he joined. I think he joined under terrible circumstances.
Yep.
And then his boss didn't do much to make it any better during his time here. And but it's also obviously a very, very good player that I think will find a place somewhere for a few years and still has a lot of soccer left in him. I mean, I still remember, I think I was talking to Nolan about this, I think, on during the last home game against Houston. That goal that he scored against Miami, the volley,
that was
where
great.
he tucked it inside the post at Arrowhead, it was the best goal I'd ever seen. Oh, not ever seen for Sporting, but the best goal I can remember seeing since, like, the Quasi volley against Dallas. Jimmy Madronda had a rocket from outside as well, but we remember all those guys sort of fondly because when they hit it pure, holy shit.
Yep.
Like, and it makes you feel good because you recognize the skill involved to be able to pull that off. And that just, man, that volley he hit. I mean,
and to do it on a huge stage, right? I mean, that says something. So
I mean,
absolutely.
without a bit of a Jake Davis situation at the end of that game, it's probably 2-2.
Yeah.
And I think that and Tommy scored both the goals in that game. Like he was a guy that showed up in big moments a lot.
He wanted to.
And he did. And he wanted that responsibility.
Yep.
He wanted that responsibility as a leader on the team. And so I'm glad that the team, like, you know, memorialized him. And memorialized is probably not the right term because that's usually used for dead people. But you know what I mean? Like they celebrated. Yeah, there you go. Celebrated his time with the club, and it should have been celebrated.
Yeah.
And similarly, some guys like Kyrie Shelton. I know Kyrie gets a lot of stick from the fans of this club. That guy has put in like 7 years here.
Yeah.
And has always been a consummate professional the entirety of that time.
Yep. That's absolutely true.
I don't think he was ever put in the best circumstances, to be completely honest.
Yep.
But he didn't ever complain about it. He just did it, right? And it caught a lot of shtick from the fan base because of it. But probably like literally. I mean, everyone talks about Elie. Kyrie's like literally the nicest dude I've ever met. Like he is like the gentlest, like nicest, like give his time to anyone type of person. And I always felt bad about the way that he got treated by the fan base a lot because it seems like he just caught the ire of a lot of the problem. And there was so many more problems outside of what Kyrie was regarding like during his time here, but often would catch stick for it. And I just sort of felt bad for him. I also found myself watching the Logan and Denbei goals against St. Louis.
Oh yeah.
So I just remember how just excited I was. Like that's honestly probably the last time I felt really good about the soccer team.
Yeah, I agree.
And then, you know, he did his ACL and that was kind of that. But man, that goal at home, the combination play on that left side, we talked about it a lot on the pod. I remember us talking about it, where they got that 4-man overload. It was him, Shallowy, Polito, and Gotti, R.I.P. Did that 4-man overload, and then Logan cut inside and made Yabalo Blom look like he was like the John Travolta meme, and just buried it. And I still like it's just like fun stuff, and it's fun to have these positive memories about these guys, because I think sometimes, especially over the last couple of years, we've gotten buried in this, when are these players leaving so we can refresh, and I understand that, and it needs to happen, but I also think it's worthwhile to remember that these guys did contribute to this team and contribute to some happy memories that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you said it perfectly.
And definitely R.I.P. Gotti Kenda. I watched him, that goal he scored from like 30 yards against St. Louis, and I just remember what a fun player he was too, and gave me the sads for a minute, for sure. But I again, like, I think, you know, this is obviously a new era and a lot of changes coming, and I think it's exciting to have that change, but I think it's okay to remember, even when the team did not have the greatest success on the field, that there were some positive memories from the players that participated in it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, you know, I think that the players that you mentioned are the ones that will probably stick with me. And, you know, that's part of it, right? Like, you know, the Johan Krause stuff is definitely like part of the fabric of the club. The Jordi Quintanilla stuff, like that's part of being a fan. And you know, it's just the nature of the sport that those players are not going to be around that long, and maybe in soccer even less than in other sports. And so, you know, you just kind of, you know, enjoy them while they're here, and enjoy what they bring to your club while they're here, and then, you know, keep their memory alive. So
100%. And speaking of guys who may or may not be here next year, Kerry Zavagnin also had his postseason media availability. And I appreciate the fact that he was willing to sit down and do this. But also I appreciate the fact that, like, I think it was Thad straight up asked him, it's like, I mean, obviously he said that he wants to be part of the coaching candidate pool. Of course, why wouldn't he? Like, yes, of course he does. How realistic it is for him to get that job, I don't know. I have my own thoughts on that, but we'll let the decision makers make that choice. But I think it was Thad that asked him, like, would you want to stick around in another role if you weren't chosen to be coach? And he like seriously like stopped. I don't think he had really thought about it that much.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I mean, look, it's a week after the season, not even a full week after the season's over. He's been through a lot that year, like, and he talked a lot about that, like just kind of the evolution of it and like dealing with it. And one of his best friends gets fired, he takes over his job, and then he has to like try to also navigate getting the team into a better place at the same time. Like it was a very difficult situation to manage. But he straight up said, he's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what I do. You could tell that, this guy has lived in Kansas City since 2000. Like, he's lived here 25 years. Is he just going to up and leave to take a coaching job somewhere else? I don't know. And I don't think he knows, to be completely honest. And I think it's a fair response, to be honest. But I don't know. What are your thoughts? Like, if he were to kind of take a role on the technical staff, if he weren't selected to be the head coach, like, do you think that that's a good idea? Do you think that maybe they need to find, maybe is it better for him to sort of get a clean break? I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is to it.
I don't think it's a good idea. I mean, I would be in favor of a clean break, and or maybe
is that more just to sort of completely move on from the previous regime?
Yeah,
is that
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
your thought?
yeah. That is definitely my thought, and I think that it's tough because I think that there is a role for ex players and ex coaches. I think that you don't want to move on from those folks completely, right? You want your club to have like that connection to the past and tradition and all of those things. But he's still a professional, right? Like, he's still a coach, and is there a place for him, somewhere in the club? Like, I don't know, and I don't know that like. As a professional, I don't know that he would want to be a part of that. So it's just kind of a very complicated situation, and I think that you and I both agree that there are some positive aspects to his coaching performance and his his man management. There's like something to build on there if he wants to continue in coaching. And so I would say that like for me, if he wants to continue coaching, it's probably not here, right? If he wants to move into a front office gig or something, on the developmental side, well, maybe that's a different story. But I don't know, like, I don't know where that leaves him any more than I think obviously he knows. He's if he was confused about or didn't really know what lies in store. And so I really think it's just a matter of whether he wants to be an active coach, or whether he just wants to be involved in some aspect of the club.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he is probably as familiar with how this is going to go, right? Like, historically, working for Peter, it was a lot of like, who do I trust? Who do I like? Who can I trust to provide me the feedback necessary? Like, can disagree with me, push back on me in areas, like, but also then when I make a decision, go do what I want. Like, there's a familiarity there over 15 years of him doing that. This environment's going to be completely different. Like, Lee has been very clear that there's going to be criteria that they're going to look at for every single coaching candidate, and they're going to score all of it, and they're going to look at it. It's going to be an evidence-based approach to decision making. Is Carey the right candidate to hit all of those marks? I have my doubts, and I don't know that necessarily him trying to make this massive adjustment to how he does things in order to fit that is the best thing for him either. But I don't know. Look, he's a grown ass man. He's gonna have to make his own decisions about what this means for him. I would, let me put it this way. I would be surprised to see that he was retained as head coach. I think he's being an amazing sort of servant to the club right now by helping David Lee make a lot of decisions on players and whatnot, when it is highly likely he's not going to return as the head coach.
Right.
And I'm not sure he's processed all that yet.
Yeah. Well, that's why I said, like, you know, if he stays.
I mean, it's Vermees hasn't done a damn thing since he left, right. And I think it's a similar thing for him, trying to process all of it and what he wants to do.
Maybe Vermees and Carey should get together and go drag Colorado out of the depths of.
I wouldn't wish working for Stan Kroenke.
No, neither would I. But there's also, it's not just Colorado. You got lots of choices in MLS. So, you know, go to New York and
New England. Go reunite with Kernan Alfo.
There you go. Yeah.
That might be worse than going to Colorado. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot. I think there obviously are going to be options out there. And we'll see how it works out. But I think you and I are in sort of a similar mindset as far as this team is going in the right direction and doing it in a decision-making philosophy that I agree with. If for whatever reason Carey checks all those boxes, great.
Right.
But I would be surprised to find that is the case.
Agree.
All right, let's move on to potpourri. Just like your favorite Jeopardy category, we got a couple topics in and around the sporting Kansas City almost soccer sphere. The playoffs have begun. Playoffs?
I was explaining the playoff format to my wife yesterday.
Yeah, it's a little difficult.
I think it was basically, what the fuck? Like, what?
Huh?
Like, what? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, part of the problem is the calendar and then playing through international breaks.
Yeah.
And so part of the reason they do this stupid first round thing is, like, at the end of the first round they can do the break.
Yep.
And then go into the knockout part of the tournament. Remember I said this like 2 or 3 years ago when they talked about this first round thing, and I was like, just make it a 4-team group stage. You had 16 teams, 2 groups in the West, 2 groups in the East. They all play each other. Regular season standing gives you hosting priority. Take the top 2 from each group. You got an 8-team knockout. You do, and you go to that after the break. I think it's a much easier way to go about this.
All over the world, that's what leagues do, is group stage type competitions, and not whatever this is.
The Champions League is now doing this stupid 32-team table. But anyway, I agree with you. Like, we're generally familiar with this type of thought process, and I think it would make the games a lot more interesting because there's a lot less reason in in these 3-game series. Yeah, they go to a penalty shootout if nobody's winning at the end, but I mean, there's limited stakes in game 1.
Yeah, I don't like it.
I want every game to mean something.
I agree.
And if you do like a group stage, you can't afford to lose a game because you don't know what your opponents are doing.
Yep. And you get different opponents, and you don't have this thing where you play the team on decision day and then you play them another 3 straight times potentially. So you're playing the same team 4 straight games in 2 weeks. That's stupid. That's just stupid. I'm sorry. That's stupid.
Yeah. Oh, you talk about Miami, Nashville? Yeah.
Sure.
It's just anyway. I think there are ways for them to architect this where they give Apple the number of games they want for inventory, while
that's
also
really what it's about. Yep.
Of course it is, yeah.
Yep.
But
Yep.
also it's making the games a little bit more entertaining because these games have been mostly snoozers. NYCFC just won in Charlotte. They're the first road team to win any game in this playoff so far.
Yeah.
And a lot of the games have not been very good.
Yeah.
So,
it just seems like it's like Groundhog Day. It seems like every year it's just this, what are we gonna do with how can we fix
Joe
the
Lowry
playoffs?
got on TSS talking about how much he liked the 3-game series, and I'm just sorry, I don't like it.
No, I don't like
I
it
mean,
either.
I only like it when Sporting beats St. Louis twice in a row.
Uh-huh.
Like that, then I like it. Like
Yeah.
that's fun times.
Well, I think the thing is there's a better way. Like you already described the better way. That is objectively a better way to do it.
I put that in my survey today.
So, uh-huh.
For those of you that are on the Discord, you probably saw this, but Ben Wright has been doing a postseason survey of Nashville fans for several years. He partnered with a bunch of different local independent media related to teams to sort of personalize these for all the teams around the league. So I put it in the Discord. This is your weekly reminder to join the Discord and participate in the conversation. There's a link in there. I reposted it on Blue Sky as well to go fill out the survey. And there's a sort of Sporting Kansas City version of it, a portion of it, and there's also an MLS portion of it. And there was a question about what you would do to the playoff format. And I put that information in there. So yeah, and there was also a question about who do you think was most to blame for Sporting Kansas City this year, and I agree with you, and I put Peter Vermees. I think that all of that information is useful and interesting, and so I'd be interested to see what everyone else has to say about it. So I'm hoping we get a decent amount.
I just want to be clear. My actual answer is Zach Cobb because fuck that guy.
Well, of course. I mean, we know that he's actually personally responsible for everything wrong with this team. I mean, I know all St. Louis fans believe that, at least the ones on Twitter. So
Yeah.
there we go.
He for someone with such a large thumbprint on the team, you'd think that they'd serve crab rangoon someplace in the facility, but they do not.
I don't think he has as large of a thumbprint as he likes to think he does.
I would agree with that assessment.
I did enjoy watching Dallas get absolutely smoked by Vancouver. Like, that game wasn't even good. Dallas took one shot in that game. And Vancouver's like, okay, fine. We will absolutely eviscerate you. You don't want to play soccer? Cool. I hope LAFC is able to do the same thing to Austin tomorrow night. I don't have high hopes because I just don't think that they're as efficient at moving the ball as Vancouver is. But the other thing that I noticed, I stayed up last night watching Seattle and Minnesota, which also went to penalties, as I discussed. Dane Sinclair kissing the post after Roldan hit it. Steph Fry.
He's no Jimmy Nielsen.
He looked as immobile as 2013 MLS Cup final Jimmy Nielsen, and Jimmy even made a save in that shootout. The thing is, Jimmy could be with broken ribs. I think he had in that game that we learned about later. Jimmy could still get in a player's head like Dane Sinclair did, right? Like he had the vibes to be able to pull off shit. Fry doesn't. He's never been very good in penalties, and now like even when he guesses the right way, he's like 3 yards from the post.
Yeah.
Like it's like there's so much of the like all you have to do and I'm obviously exaggerating when I say 3 yards, but it is a whole yard.
Yeah.
Like there's a whole yard between his hand and the post when he guesses the right way, which means for a professional soccer player, you don't really care if he guesses. No. You just as long as you can get it within a yard of the post, it's a goal. And I mean, Schmetzer's got to think about bringing on Andrew Thomas if they're going to go to penalties again. Because
they need to.
They might need to bring out Andrew Thomas in general. Like honestly,
they need to not go to penalties. I mean, that's the thing is that, and this is the
against Minnesota. That's a hard thing to do, though.
This is the problem with. This is why I was always kind of skeptical of the way that Seattle decided to do things this year. Is that they went away from like top end designated players and. I think that one thing that Sporting Kansas City found is that you can have a deep roster of experienced players, but if you're missing that top end talent, you're always going to be missing that in the playoffs. And playoffs are where that top end talent really stands out. Like traditionally, that's been the case with MLS, and I don't think it's any different this year. And so if you're I understand and to some extent appreciate the way that Seattle decided to build their roster, but it's missing the cream, man, and you got to have the cream.
Yeah, when you make a really really interesting point, because when you think about like the late teens, that Seattle team that was in MLS Cup every year, they had Raul Ruidiaz and Nico Ladero.
Yeah. It makes a difference.
Jordan Morris and Albert Rusnak ain't that.
They are not that, and they're great players. And they're like, you can win a supporter shield. As Philly showed, you can win a supporter shield with that kind of roster build. But it's hard to win playoff games. And
honestly, Musovski, in the 15 minutes he played, created way more high quality scoring chances than Morris did.
Yeah.
I mean, he's point blank range on one that Dane Sinclair makes an insane save on. But I think that, like, that's what I'm saying. It's like
creating chances and finishing them are two different things, though. Right? I mean, that's the thing.
That's what happens when you have an XG monster like Musovski, but not a finisher like Raul Ruidiaz.
Right. That's what happens when Sebastian Blanco starts for your team.
Dude, don't say that. Why do you?
Because that's the image that is imprinted in my brain. I can't get rid of it.
I distinctly remember watching him line that shot up and putting it inside the freaking post, and I'm just, oh my god,
it was terrible. And the fact that you knew it was coming made it 10 times worse.
He just teed it up, and you're like, oh, this is a goal.
Yep.
I know how this story ends.
Yeah, that was gross. Sorry, Drew.
The last time this team was good.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that's the best Sporting Kansas City team I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Was that 2018 team.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just heartbreaking. Man. But that's also, to your point, that's what happens in playoff games.
Yep.
And you need elite players to help you win those games. And I think you have a valid point about Seattle not having those. I still think they'll probably get by Minnesota, but I think that they're done after that, because they don't have the depth of high quality talent to get beyond. Which is interesting, because you wouldn't have thought Vancouver had it. That was my main issue with Vancouver going into in the summer.
Yeah.
Was I believed that they were good. I didn't believe that they would make a deep playoff run because they didn't have the guys. And then they signed Thomas Muller, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe.
I think you mean Mueller.
No, I don't. No, I don't mean that. Why can't people say? I got to be honest. Goss and Bogart say his name wrong all the fucking time too.
Uh-huh.
Moadou did it on the broadcast last night, and I'm like, come on, guys. His name is Thomas Muller. I don't even. You don't even have to go full German and go like Derek Ray does it, like Thomas Muller. You don't have to do that. It's Thomas Muller.
Yep.
Just say it right. The guy has earned the right to you learning how to pronounce his name.
Amen. So you look at players who have those elite, or teams that have those elite players that are still, who are in the playoffs, and that is, obviously Vancouver, obviously LAFC, obviously not Austin.
Jesus Christ.
Obviously Miami.
Nashville has, in Surridge and Mukhtar, I think they have those guys.
But they have to make it past Miami, and they're not making it past.
And
Miami.
I don't think. Yeah, it doesn't seem like that's going to happen.
Yeah. So.
And I think, but that's why I'm backing Cincinnati, because I think in Denke and Evander they have those guys.
Yeah, Evander is that guy for sure.
Cincinnati was nowhere in this game against Columbus. I think Columbus played really well in this game, and just. They, at a certain point, got into it. I mean, things got a little tough for them at the end of the game. Denke should have scored before this, to be completely honest, but he gets on the ball in the right spot and buries it, puts it home. And I mean, it's like having those guys is how you win.
San Diego is the other team that has those guys.
It sounds if Chucky plays.
No, I mean Dreyer is that guy for sure.
Dreyer is that guy, but you need a couple of them. I think. I don't think Dreyer's going to do it on his own. I think it's fine against Portland, but I think against better teams they're going to struggle. It sounds like Chucky's probably going to play game 2. The way that Mikey Veras phrased it was as long as there's no more setbacks.
Right.
And I'm like, as if he was on the injury report.
He did say play. He didn't say start. So,
yeah, that's true.
Chucky comes on for 10 minutes at the end.
He may be coming off the bench, but I just love the phrasing. It's as long as there aren't any setbacks, he's rehabbing something, and we're worried that his injury might get worse. It's no. Can he not be a sulky prick in the locker room about the fact that he's not playing?
Yeah,
there's a whole lot of Gio Reyna made the press today, and I got a whole lot of like similarities here between Chucky and Gio Reyna. Why is Gio Reyna still talking about this shit? Why?
I missed it. What did he say today?
Oh, he did an interview, and they brought up the fucking Qatar 2022 stuff, and he made some comment about I don't think I'm completely at fault for everything that happened, blah 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 blah. And I'm
why is he doing interviews? He doesn't even play. Like what? Who fucking cares?
That's what John Mueller said. He's like, hey, I need to see the data on the minutes Gio spent doing interviews versus minutes playing professional soccer.
Dude, seriously, what the fuck? Nobody cares, dude.
And he why are you drumming this shit back up? It was 3 fucking years ago. Just stop. Just stop.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
He didn't even get on today for the Munchies versus in the Pokal. Like he was an unused substitute in that game. Cool. And I mean, it looks like Mönchengladbach's going to get relegated. And so he can't even get on the field for a relegation Bundesliga team.
Yeah.
But we're talking about him trying to get on the World Cup roster.
No, nobody's talking about that.
He is.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe him. Maybe he's the only one.
The Scuff guys have a love affair with him, so he gets brought up a lot. They had Doug McIntyre on last week, and Bell's made his biggest plea. He's like, oh well, he's so good at this and this, and I'm like, bro, he's not good at anything else. No, including staying healthy,
or being a halfway decent person in the locker room.
Yeah.
Because if he, even with all his health issues, like if he was a good locker room presence and a good teammate, he'd probably get looks, but he's not.
And it sounds like he's already pissed off Poch. Like him and Scally did some bullshit with a golf cart or something the last time he was in camp with Poch. So it's like it reeks of a 22-year-old kid who just doesn't fucking get it. Yeah. And I don't think Poch is gonna be fucking with that.
So the saying around my house is, and I don't know where this came from, but it's BBB, and it stands for boo, bitch, bye, or boo, bye, bitch, however you want to look at it. So that's what I say to Gio is BBB, man. Bye.
It's funny because your son is about the same age as Gio Reyna.
They are the same. Yeah, they are the same age. Yeah.
So you can probably see how Gio Reyna would be doing some of the things he's doing.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. There's no more dumber person on the planet than a young man of that age.
Especially getting paid several $1 million a year to play soccer.
They think they know everything, and they know absolutely nothing. So.
And then you pay them $2-3 million a year to play soccer, and
yeah, it amplifies it for sure.
All right. What's left on the potpourri list? The U.S. Women's National Team is here in town. They were training. Emma Hayes must have gotten a feeling of home because it's felt like England in October here for the last week. 55 degrees and raining as they trained today. I did not honestly get to see much of either of the games they played.
Neither did I.
I watched, I think, the first half of the first game versus Portugal, and it wasn't ideal. And then I caught up on the score later, and I realized it was even less than ideal. There was a significantly rotated and much more experimental lineup in the second game, which they won, which included Claire Hutton and Lola Bonta later in the game. And Ali Setner. So more Kansas City players were in the second one, and they won. So maybe that's what they need to do, just play more Kansas City players. That's my deep analysis of this one.
Let's do that. I like that idea.
So start 4 Kansas City players on Wednesday. Profit.
There you go. I just have a hard time getting up to pay any attention to friendlies, so...
Yeah, I mean Portugal's was a little bit more interesting because they had played pretty well in the Euros, and they seemed like I don't say well, but they qualified for the Euros.
Sure.
They got
a little bit higher caliber.
They got blitzed by Spain in the Euros, but I think that it was a little bit higher caliber opponent. And they gave the women trouble in the first game, which there's something to be said for. Emma made some interesting comments about how they're playing in Europe and Champions League and just doing this like weird sort of fence straddling thing about NWSL players versus European based players and whatnot, and it gets into a whole separate conversation about the quality of the NWSL versus the quality of the top teams in Europe. I mean, I think I can get behind the fact that Arsenal and Chelsea and Barcelona are the best teams in Europe for sure. I don't know how much better they are than the Current, like who is obviously the best team in the NWSL. I'd like to see it.
Yeah, that'd be great. Let's do
That'd
it.
be fun. That'd be fun. Our best chance to see it, it sounds like, is in some 7v7 tournament in December. So
Okay. That works too. Let's do that.
yeah, so there is going to be that. The World Sevens is happening in December, and the Current are in it. So I think Mike McGrew said this on Blue Sky that the Current have a roster that's really built for a 7v7. Like I think,
if you could cherry pick that roster for the best players, you're gonna win that shit, dude.
yeah, like that is an absurd roster for 7v7.
Yep.
So I'm
It's
kind of
it's an
interested to
absurd
watch
roster for 11v11, dude.
It is, but I mean 7v7. I think they're gonna rip some teams.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Hey, when you stack your team with good Brazilians, you're made for 7v7.
Yeah. I am a little bummed that I didn't watch the second game that they won because there was a Lily Johannes, Claire Hutton double pivot, and I did want to see that.
Yeah.
I almost need to go watch the replay because that is my dream for the next 10 years of the women's national team.
Maybe we'll get it tomorrow. You never know.
Yeah, that's true. We might get it tomorrow. So yeah, I mean, what else? What are your final thoughts as we break into this off-season calendar? I don't know that much is going to happen over the next couple weeks, just because there aren't many things that can happen given the calendar and the playoffs and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, my final thought, like my final feeling is one of sort of relief that we're like at this point, and things are going to change, and I think that
and no hokey shit happened.
Right, no hokey shit happened. Right, and I think that.
And we've become used to some hokey shit happening.
I think that's the truth. I'm like deeply optimistic about this team moving forward. I don't think they're going to be great next year or anything, but like it's a genuinely exciting time to be a Sporting Kansas City fan, and I don't know, I don't feel that. Like outside of like maybe the home and away Discord, I don't really feel that excitement, which is I think understandable. Even my mom was like, "Oh, I don't know. What do you think about all this stuff?" I think, "Are you kidding me? It's amazing. I like it's much needed. It's it's the chance for the club we support to sort of like move into like modern soccer." Like the way that modern soccer clubs handle business, and I think that is really exciting. And the fact that we're going to have a brand new team essentially to root for in a year is I think just equally exciting and a little bit nerve-wracking, sure, but it also makes it really interesting. And I'm just I'm just really psyched to be a Sporting Kansas City supporter at this point in time because I think things are looking up, but things are also the next 6 months is going to be super fascinating to talk about, and so I'm glad that we have this outlet to talk to folks about it because I think that there's going to be a lot going on.
Yeah, I think. For sure, I agree with you that the ability to have this forum to discuss it and get into the details of it is something that obviously you and I enjoy, and we're obviously very appreciative of all the people that listen and participate in it because it makes us want to keep doing it and keeps us interested in doing it. And so from that perspective, I wholeheartely agree. I think. And this is anecdotal, right? Like everything's anecdotal. It's based off of like personal interactions and whatnot. This is just like a random experience. Last Thursday night, I was playing poker, and I had my Sporting Kansas City hoodie on, and the guy was sitting next to me like noticed it. He's like, "Man, I really like that." We just started talking about sporting, and he was aware of David Lee. He was aware of the changes the club had made and the roster changes they had made and had positive thoughts about the stuff that was going on. And I just did not expect that level of interest, right? And I expected amongst the listeners of the podcast and sort of the Discord and the people that we interact with regularly. But it shows that this stuff is resonating, I think, beyond our circle a little bit, which I think is important, right? I mean, again, it's not everybody. Not everybody's going to be this dialed into it. But I think that, and you have to sort of be a little bit of a sicko about sports or about this team to have that level of optimism. Because all you could otherwise see is coach fired, team sucks, what are we doing, right? Like, all of the players I know are gone.
Yeah. That's rough.
Right? And I think that it would be difficult otherwise to come away with a positive point of view. I am with you. I am unbelievably optimistic. The way that David Lee goes about discussing his thought process and does it in an open forum, all of it, like, I could tell this is a guy I would be friends with.
Right.
Like, if we knew each other, I would be friends with this guy because I could tell by the way that he thinks and the way that he processes information and just how sort of methodical he is about his approach. Everything has a reason for it, right? And it's a thought out reason, and it's based in it is calculated. It's based in information that he has been able to quantify, and it's just like. And it's also rational.
Right.
And it's nice to just hear just like normal, decision-making thought processes happen in real time and just happen and be explained.
Right.
So I am extremely optimistic. Look, I can't predict that every decision he's going to make is going to be right. And in fact, it's not going to be. Like, we all have to be understanding of that. There are too many things that have to happen for all of them to be right.
Right.
They aren't going to be. There are going to be some that don't work. The difference is I feel a lot more confident in the guy that's in charge, recognizing what didn't work, adjusting, fixing the problem, and moving on.
Yeah. Totally agree.
Not doubling down, not, you know what I mean? Like, there's going to be a willingness to accept, I didn't do this right. We need a pivot. Let's go. Like, that is how this stuff has to happen. It happens in business. It happens at the high levels of sports. Like, you have to be willing to accept you're not going to be 100% right all the time.
Yeah.
And in his job, if you're 80% right, you're one of the best at it, period. Right? And so, like, there's just going to be stuff that requires additional analysis and then adjustment. And I just feel extremely confident that we're dealing with a person that understands that.
Yeah.
And understands the need to make to adjust on the fly when that happens and just cut bait and move to the next level, right? I just there's just a level of refreshed thought that's being presented right now, and a level of trust that I have that they're modernizing this team.
Yep. Totally agree.
Or at least that is their goal. Whether they accomplish it or not is yet to be seen, right? But I feel a level of confidence about their ability to accomplish it that I did not have at the beginning of this season.
Yep, absolutely agree.
So it's gonna be, like you said, it's gonna be fascinating to watch how that evolves. Unfortunately, I think it's gonna be several weeks before we'll start to see the actual influence of some of these changes happening because, like we said, MLS playoffs are ongoing. The offseason doesn't even start till December. I don't think we're going to see significant player movement or any of those kinds of things. But
that month, December 10th to January 10th, that's going to be popping.
Bro, we are going to have a lot going on. I really do think there's going to be a lot going on for this team over that 4-week window that is going to be fascinating to discuss and sort of unpack and get into the details of. But it also, I think, from David Lee's perspective, allows him the time. Obviously they're evaluating players and they're, international scouting and all that has to happen as a part of it. But it also means he's not chasing down contracts and trying to like finalize deals with anybody at that point. So he can really focus on head coach candidates.
Yeah.
And so maybe that is something that can really be addressed even prior to making some of these player decisions.
That'd be nice.
And it ideally it would be, because you'd want that head coach to be engaged and on board with some of the things that you're doing, especially for the higher priced portions of the roster. So I think that, there's a lot of opportunity there. I mean, Big Ange, he's out there. He's available.
Pass, man.
I know.
Pass.
I love that guy so much, but
I don't need that stress in my life.
I do not. It is a high stress. It's a high stress guy to be. I will always have a soft spot in my heart for Big Ange, because he brought a fucking Europa League title
100%.
to Tottenham Hotspur.
Absolutely understandable.
Jose Mourinho, Antonio Conte, those guys didn't do any of that shit. So there's something to be said for it. And I love his personality. His vibes are amazing. I do not want another fucking coach who doesn't care about defense or set pieces.
No, that would drive me nuts.
No, I don't. I got to be honest. Like it's Tottenham Hotspur are a tough watch right now, but they're at least getting results.
Because they pay attention to defense and set pieces.
Yes, exactly. They're not necessarily fun,
no,
but they do get results, and I
That's
would
what it's
prefer
all
that
about.
my soccer. First things first, get the result.
Amen.
Make it look good later. And on that note, I'm Drew. He's Cody. We will talk to y'all next week.
Bye-bye.
Start doing it.